Hello everyone, I'm Day Weather Meteorologist Don Day with your Public Lands Council weekly weather update for this January 13th, 2024. It's brought to you by WSR Insurance Services Incorporated, also being brought to you by Ag Risk Advisors. This is what we're watching for you. Last week in our video update, we talked about the potential for a big change in the weather across the West, and that's commencing. Severe winter weather this weekend into early next week for many. And in fact, for many areas of the central and northern Rockies, and especially the central and northern plains, this is going to be a prolonged period of cold that will span this weekend into early next week. The middle of next week, a very brief reprieve. Then we might see Arctic air come back in along and near the divide again, keeping our temperatures on the whole over the next 7 days very cold. The coldest winter weather of the season, very stressful livestock conditions for many areas of the central and northern Rockies and central and northern plains. Now, this pattern change is going to bring a big boost to the mountain snowpack that really needs it. We're going to see the best snows in the mountains so far this season over the course of the next couple of weeks. That's good news, but it will be tough going on the plains and the lower elevations, especially along and east of the divide, with this weather pattern change. And the overall general trend for the U.S. and the West is colder. After a very mild December, for most of you, things are really all of a sudden getting back into some harsh winter weather conditions. Now, over the last week, we have seen a pickup in snow in the high country, as we can see here and across parts of the Pacific Northwest, and then very wet and snowy across parts of the Midwest. Very wet across the central and the eastern areas of the United States. Not a lot down in the southwestern United States. And this is where snowfall has been over the last couple of weeks. You can see the snow event that occurred in this area here earlier in the week. There's another big storm that'll blow up this weekend across the Great Lakes in the upper Midwest and eventually into the northeastern United States. And you can see how the mountain snows have started to pick up again. In the last week, it certainly has trended colder, but the next map we'll show you next week will have a lot of blue and a lot of green on it, as the very cold weather in Canada up here is going to expand south and east across the United States, bringing some very cold weather our way. And this is the setup for the weekend. You see all the blue here out of Canada? This big area here I'm circling is just a lot of deep Arctic air that's getting a push very far south out of Canada and into the U.S. So we're going to have bitter cold across the northern Rockies and northern plains, significant snow in the mountains and along the edges of the Arctic air. Snow, ice, and rain will be developing as temperatures fall and plummet in this Arctic air mass. Now, by next weekend, we should see a little bit of a high pressure ridge in the west come in, and the severe cold and the stormy weather centered more in the Great Lakes and the northeastern areas of the U.S. So there is a bit of a break in the weather coming, but overall, there will still be very cold air on the back side of this system, at least along and east of the Continental Divide. For you folks in the Great Basin in California and the desert Southwest, it is going to be chilly, January chilly, but the worst of the cold and snow will stay north and east of those Great Basin and southwestern areas of the United States. But there's certainly a lot more winter that'll be happening than we've seen all winter season. And here's a good example. See all that purple? Temperatures are more than 30 to 50 degrees below the 30-year average. And basically where you see the purple, temperatures are going to be well below zero, in some areas far below zero. So this is where we're starting off this forecast period. This is what we're going to see by Monday. The cold, that purple area expanding further south, further east, a little bit west as well, getting right up and pushed up right against the Continental Divide. You can see very cold air gets into the Snake River Valley here up to Boise, into southern Idaho, even into portions of eastern Oregon and Washington State, into Spokane, and even back into parts of the central and eastern areas of the Pacific Northwest. Freezing temperatures will get as far south as Houston, and then later on in the week getting as far south as the Florida Panhandle. And this is by Thursday of next week. So you can still see that while the bitter cold relaxes some, along and east of this black line I'm showing you, from Canada to the plains, across the northern and central Rockies, elsewhere across the east, it is going to be really cold. Only the southwestern United States gets a bit of a reprieve from the cold by mid to late next week. Over the next 7 days, you can see, again, the southwestern United States is going to escape the weather. But along the Interstate 80 corridor here from California, across Nevada, Utah into Wyoming, across Nebraska into Iowa here, and points northward, you can see the snow that's going to be falling. And here it is. Snow will be widespread across the lower 48 and big areas of snow across Canada. Pretty far south that snow will go, and even ice. Could have some ice situation problems here later in the week as that Arctic air expands. And as Pacific air overruns the Arctic air in the Pacific Northwest, we could have some real icing problems in Washington, Oregon, and even into northern areas of California. So buckle in. The next week ahead will bring a lot of winter weather our way. A lot of stressful weather on young, weak, and newborn livestock in many areas. Have yourself a good week ahead. See you next week.